Welcome inside the Red Mile Rundown, episode 76. I am your host, Johnny Tope, and alongside me, as always, to record the Red Mile Rundown is Robert Munich. How are you today, Robert?
Man, the playoffs have been good, and it's put me in a good mood. I just like kind of looking back on the last few years of playoff hockey, I feel like this has been the best first round overall. I know there's been a couple sweeps, but the hatred and just the pace of the games and the skill and the goal scoring, playoffs have been absolutely incredible so far. So yeah, that's been putting me in a good mood lately.
Even in the sweeps, you saw the Senators give Carolina all they could handle, right? Carolina clearly has the better skill set at the end of the day, but there was a lot of scrums. I found a lot of scrums in a lot of these games and a lot of these series, and it's made for some exciting hockey. Controversial goals, big hits, just people that should be suspended, maybe getting fined. Like, it's been tremendous. That Tampa Bay and Montreal series has me salivating. Like,
so good.
Anyone who thinks that Montreal is the way the Flames should rebuild is spot on, because that is an incredible hockey team to watch and how they approach things. Like, so fun to watch, man. It's been incredible. Absolutely incredible. The only downside, like you mentioned, is a couple of sweeps already, so we're not going to get as many games. But I think we're getting quality out of these games, like the Dallas and Minnesota series. Clearly, they love one another because they're just beating the crap out of each other. And it's just absolutely fun to watch. I'm with you there. Playoffs are awesome. Speaking of playoffs, let's talk non-playoff hockey then, Robert. I never thought that I'd be sitting around grading people or grading papers or being a school teacher in any way, shape, or form. But here we are again. I'm doing grading and report cards for, I think, the fourth consecutive season now, which is a while. And here we are again. It's time for report cards. We're going to do this so the listeners are up to date here. We're going to do this in a few parts. So we're not going to run through the whole roster today. We'll have some more next week and the week after, probably. We figured we'd highlight a few players that we've genuinely enjoyed watching this season, or maybe genuinely enjoyed hating this season, depending how you want to look at it, Robert. And so I'm excited to dive into these 7 players with you on the podcast. So why don't we start with Morgan Frost? This guy, interesting season for Morgan Frost, and how you split up his before and after the trade deadlines. I went and took a look, Robert, because I was genuinely interested in Morgan Frost and his split. So before the trade deadline, it was 61 games, and Morgan Frost had 29 points, which is 0.48 points per game. So, you know, you're not in love with it, but you can kind of live with it. He was okay. Post-deadline, 21 games, he had 14 points for a 0.67 points per game. So kind of a tale of two parts of the season. Where do you go with Morgan Frost, Robert, and the grade that you give him? Because this one's an interesting one for me.
Yeah, I would say that his season was defined by inconsistency. I think that's probably the one word I would use to describe it, because, you know, there were a few nights. It didn't happen a lot, but I would say there were probably 3 to 5 games this year where you watched Morgan Frost and you thought to yourself, you know, number one, he's the best player on the ice. And number two, like, he looks like an elite NHL player. You know, I think there was a game against Toronto. There was an Edmonton game in Anaheim, a few that come to mind, where he put up multiple points and he was dangling and he was setting up his teammates and he was winning a ton of draws. And you're like, holy crap. Like, if the Flames could get this guy for 30 to 40 games a year, like, all of a sudden he's a really good player. But like I said, it only happened 3 to 5 times. So, you know, I would say the inconsistency was the part of his season that was very frustrating, because you see the high-end skill set, and then he'll probably go one game where he plays outstanding, and then the next 7 or 8 he's very quiet and doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. So if he can just up that consistency level, and if he can play like he did beyond the trade deadline after Nazem Kadri was traded, then I think you're looking at a really effective player for this team. But if he's the guy from October to the trade deadline, then I don't know if you want to invest a whole heck of a lot of him in the future. So yeah, my grade for Frost was a B. And the way I'm grading is just kind of based off of my expectations for the player heading into the season. And, you know, kind of what we saw from Frost in terms of the inconsistency. You know, some nights he's great, a lot of nights he's not, is exactly kind of what I expected from him. And yeah, I would give him a B. I would say kind of met expectations, and this is the kind of player I think we're going to see in the future heading forward here.
I'm going to cheat on this one, Robert. I'm going to give Morgan Frost 2 separate grades because we saw 2 separate Morgan Frost. Before the trade deadline, he was around 14 minutes a night. His shooting percentage was under 20, and he was having just an season. Like you mentioned, a lot of inconsistencies. So that part of Morgan Frost, I'm going to give a C grade to. But post deadline, we saw a guy who got almost 2.5 more minutes a night. His points per game went up. His averages went up. His shooting percentage went over 20. The guy was winning close to 60% of his faceoffs after the trade deadline. That player I can give an A- to because of the way that he performed. And like you mentioned it, Robert, he was the best player a lot of nights. Definitely the best centerman for the Flames and what they've asked him to do. Riding shotgun with Matt Backlund may have helped that along. But for me, Robert, it really was a tale of 2 parts of the season for Morgan Frost. If you can get post-deadline Morgan Frost going forward, absolutely, like you mentioned, that's someone you invest in. That's someone that you could go forward with. That's a middle 6 forward when you come out of the rebuild type of forward, a leader for this group. But if you're going to get the guy we saw before Kadri was dealt, that's trade him right now. Trade him now and get him out of here because that's just not a player you can build around. So we need consistency from Morgan Frost moving forward, and I think we can get it. This big off season for him, and he's heading into next season with a big opportunity to continue his team's number 1 center offensively as well for the Flames, getting all those matchups that help him out. Playing with those kids, you want to play with Matt Backlund going forward. You got to continue to produce. So I love the words you use with inconsistencies with Morgan Frost because if he can be consistent in his play, like we saw post deadline, that's a good player. That's a good hockey player.
For sure. And there are a few things that I really like about Morgan Frost's game. You know, one is his ability to win faceoffs. He was right around 57% this year, which is outstanding. I think it was 56.7%. You know, one of the better faceoff guys in the whole league.
Yeah,
I do like him on the power play, whether it's, you know, he's going to be on the first unit next year and probably the year after that if they sign him. But long term, you know, he could be a decent power play 2 guy. I like him in 3-on-3 overtime. I like him in the shootout. I would say he's probably their best shootout player. You know, Matt Backlund might have something to say about that now, but, you know, over the last couple of years, Frost has been kind of the go-to guy in the shootout, which is those points are important in the NHL. So there's a lot to like about his game. And, you know, you mentioned the points per game before and after the trade deadline. And if you kind of draw those out into over 82 games, like an 82 game point pace. So from the start of the season to the trade deadline, it was a 39-point pace over 82. And after the trade deadline, it was a 55-point pace. So, I mean, if they get the guy who performed after the trade deadline next year, like all of a sudden, I could see Frost being a long-term piece in Calgary, particularly as a third-line center. Like, say you sign him to a 4 to 6 year contract. I could see him being a long-term number 3 center who provides a little bit of offense, anywhere from 39 to 55 points, and then does all those things that I mentioned before. Like, all of a sudden, I think you actually have a pretty good player there. And then you hope that Cole Reshny will kind of fit in as the number 2 in the future, and you hope to find a number 1 center at some point. And then all of a sudden, if you go those 2 young players, Reshny and whoever the other guy might be, and then Frost as your number 3, you know, I think that's some pretty decent center depth. And Frost seems like a guy who could age well because I think he's a smart player. I don't think he necessarily relies on his skating to be an effective player. So I think a lot of his effectiveness comes from his hands, his smarts, his skill, and I don't think those are going away by age 34. So it's going to be really interesting to see what ends up happening with him. I think the Flames are in a win-win situation with him because either they'll end up trading him next year and they'll probably recoup a similar package, if not more, for Frost than they did to acquire him and Farabee. Or option 2 is you re-sign him to a long-term deal and he's your long-term number 3 center. So I think it's a win-win. I'm really intrigued to see how Frost can perform last year. Like, the one thing I'll ask you is, so we saw after the trade deadline, he's the go-to center for the Flames offensively on the power play and at 5-on-5. You know, starting next year when the games are more intense and more important than they were down the stretch, and you have opposing top forward lines and top defensive pairs going up against Frost, can he keep up? like he did at the end of this year, because I have a hard time evaluating players when the games literally don't matter, like whatsoever. So when the games matter again and he's facing better competition, can he be that 55-point guy, or is he going to go back to being the 39-point guy? Like, I'd be curious to know like where you think he's gonna perform kind of at the start of next year when things actually matter again.
Yeah, that's a great question. Really, only Morgan Frost can answer that one for us. You hope that he can carry forward what he did the last part of this season. You hope that the expanded role, there's no Nazem Kadri to fall back on. Really, Mikael Backlund's not taking your offensive minutes away from you. So there really isn't anyone there to challenge him. So this is an opportunity for him to show that he is that 50-point guy. If you can get 50 points out of Morgan Frost, I'd take that every year. That's a big win for the Flames. When it gets tough again, that's going to be on him to elevate his game to be a better player, because you mentioned his skating isn't the best, but he does have the smarts, the hands to get through, to fight through, to be a better player, to be a more consistent player. So that's really an interesting question to ask, because I can't answer it because I don't know. But if I were to be betting, he's somewhere in the middle between that 55-point guy and the 39-point guy. He's somewhere in the middle there. And if you're going to get 45 to 50 points from Morgan Frost, I think you take that all day long. So he's got to be prepared for camp, because this is going to be a big opportunity for him. And he's going into a contract year. What does he want to do with this contract? Does he want a long-term contract? He's got to play his way into those kind of conversations. So he's going to have the motivation there, and he's got to show up and show us that he's prepared to do it, prepared to do the job. And because he's going to be counted on for big minutes for the Flames. Because if he comes in next year and you're getting 35-point Morgan Frost, this Flames team is in a world of hurt, because after Morgan Frost, your two next centers are guys in their mid to later 30s in Mata and Backlund. You can't rely on that either.
Strome.
What Mata? Mata's on the list today. I was looking ahead. That's where we're going here. So, but yeah, the point remains. This is an opportunity for Morgan. He's got to seize it, and he has all the motivation in the world to be that player again. It's a big season for him coming up here for the Flames.
Yeah, and like the other thing to keep in mind too is that this Flames team, they're transitioning their leadership core over the next couple years here. You know, Ryan Strome's going to be gone. You know, guys like Olli Mata, Blake Coleman, Zach Whitecloud, Mikael Backlund. You know, these leaders on the team right now, these veteran guys, I don't know how much longer they're going to be in the organization. I think it could be anywhere between 1 to 3 years. So the team's going to have to start transitioning the leadership core over to this group of players who are in that kind of 23 to 30-year-old range. And Morgan Frost could potentially be a big part of that. Like the impression I get just from watching the chase and listening to interviews and all that kind of stuff, I get the impression that guys like Frost and Farabee are very popular players in that locker room. And I do think that's important, because finding good people both on and off the ice, I think, is becoming increasingly difficult in the NHL. And, you know, if you can find a guy like Frost who can play those third line center minutes for you, and like I said, you know, play some special teams, and he's good in 3-on-3 in the shootout, and, you know, he can put up, you know, 40 to 50 points a year. Like that and is good in the locker room and is respected by his teammates. All of a sudden, that's actually kind of an important player and could be a guy to fill out your middle six of your lineup for, you know, the next 5 or 6 years. So yeah, what I'm in terms of the future, like looking forward, I think they should not sign him this summer. I think they should go into next season with him playing on a contract year, and let's just see what you're going to get out of him. Because if he is going to be the 35-point guy and you do want to re-sign him, then, you know, all of a sudden maybe the deal is like a 4x4 and you don't have to pay through the nose for him. But if he does step up and he is that 50 to 60-point player, you know, then you know, the contract, you know, you can get appropriate value for him if that's kind of what I'm trying to get across here. So yeah, I wouldn't re-sign him, because like the range of outcomes is pretty wide with this player, and you don't want to sign him to a 6-year deal this summer and then all of a sudden he comes out next year and is a 35-point player. Like that's kind of what I was trying to get across there. So yeah, I think Frost will be one of the more interesting players to watch heading into next season for sure.
I think you're betting against yourself if you sign him right now. And that's no disrespect to Morgan Frost, no disrespect to what he brings to the table. But why would you not let this play out a little bit more? Why would you not let this become a conversation that around January 1st, then you're looking at, okay, what do we do with him? You've given him a good sample size of the season to show what he's bringing next season, what he brings to the table, what kind of a player he is, and you make your judgment from there. If it's not going well, you trade him off for an asset, so be it. But if things are going well and you're getting what we saw the last 6 weeks of the season, and you sign that guy to a multi-year extension, I think a lot of fans will understand why you did it. But you got to do your due diligence first, and that means hoping he comes into camp ready to go and hoping that he takes advantage of the opportunity put in front of him by the Flames.
Well, that's a great point, because if you're Morgan, like, you're going to head into next season as the team's number one offensive center. You're going to be on the number one power play. You're probably going to play with Matvei Gridin on your wing all year, who's one of the best playmakers on the team. You know, there's potential, like big time potential for Frost to be a 50-point guy. And if he does become that player all the way into February, then I think he's looking at a much bigger contract than he would had he signed this offseason. So yeah, that's a great point by you.
If he maximizes out his opportunity, this guy could be looking at like a 7x7 type of contract, right? Like, let's be honest here. If you're looking for a long-term contract and you maximize yourself out and you're on pace for over 50 points, maybe closer to 60 points, you get paid for that kind of stuff. You get paid to be in that situation, in that spot. Now, 7x7 might sound rich to a lot of fans listening, but go look around the league. Those kind of players get paid. They get the money. They get the term. They get the contract. It's 100% in Morgan Frost's court for me in this situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, especially with the cap going up, like it's going up considerably over the next few years. So, you know, say in 2023, you're a player on a 5x5 contract. Well, all of a sudden, that in 2028 with the cap going way up, all of a sudden that $5 million player in 2023 is now a $7 million player in 2028. So, throwing out those numbers, if he produces and plays great next year, I don't think is honestly that crazy.
Yeah, if you're maxing out, like, that's what I'm talking. Like, I didn't come up with those numbers, but like I got those off the radio, and I was shocked when I first heard them. But then you think about it, and you're like, that's actually right on pace for what that kind of a player gets in today's NHL. All right, let's move on to the next guy. You talked about inconsistencies with Morgan Frost. This next guy is Mr. Consistent for me and for the Calgary Flames. He's Mr. Everything for them defensively as well. Pretty easy to give Mikael Backlund a grade here. This guy shows up, he plays hard, he does what he does. He takes on some of these really tough matchups. He plays in really tough spots for the Flames, and he continues to be a massive leader off ice for the Flames as well. The expectations for Backlund couldn't be all that terribly high for anybody because we all know what Mikael Backlund brings. And for that reason, it's pretty easy for me to give this guy an A grade. I know it was a down season for the Flames across the board, but this guy still showed up. This guy still led the team. This guy still did his job, and it was tougher some nights than other nights. But for me, Mikael Backlund, I'm going to give him an A grade because I really actually appreciate what he did this season in a tough spot for the Flames. What say you, Robert?
Yeah, I'm 100% on board with that. And I know there's a section of the Flames fan base that does not like Mikael Backlund for some reason. And I know
it's so weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think where it comes from is just the fact that you had like Jerome and Mark Giordano as captains before Mikael Backlund, and those guys were more, they were elite players. You know, Jerome Iginla's winning scoring titles and is one of the best players in the NHL. You got Mark Giordano, who's winning Norris's and is one of the best defensemen in the NHL, and they can hit and fight. Backlund's just not that kind of player. Like he's
for me, that's like getting mad at Henrik Zetterberg because he was the captain after Yzerman and Lidstrom.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just
so
different guys.
You got to have some perspective here when you're evaluating Mikael Backlund. And yeah, heading into the season, like, you know, he's 36 years old. A lot of players, when they hit that age, really start to fall off. It's pretty rare for somebody to maintain or even improve their level of play at that age. And heading into the year, I was thinking to myself, you know, I could see Backlund being a 30-point guy and really focusing on defense and, you know, taking maybe a bit of a step back this year. I think it was the complete opposite. I actually thought he performed quite a bit above my expectations. Like I thought he had a rock solid year. And, you know, I agree with a lot of the points you made there. Like, he's taking on some of the toughest matchups in the entire NHL. Like, he is relied upon defensively almost more than any other center in the league. I look at, there's a couple guys like Chandler Stevenson and Ryan O'Reilly, and those types of players were taking out big matchups too. But Backlund was right there, and he starts in the D zone a ton. He takes a million draws. On top of that, like he was second in team scoring. I know 43 points is nothing great, but for a team that can't score, and for a guy who's playing strictly defensive matchups and playing against the opponent's top players, for him to put up 43 goals on a team that can't score I thought was thoroughly impressive. He was a +7. He broke even at 5-on-5 in terms of goals for and goals against, and that's on a team with a -47 goal differential. Like that says a lot to me. That tells me that he is an extremely impactful player. And then in terms of his defensive responsibilities, just some other stats that I was able to find here. So in terms of defensive zone faceoffs taken, he was second in the NHL at 493. The only player ahead of him was Chandler Stevenson.
That's crazy.
Defensive zone starts, he had 270, 6th in the NHL. Takeaways, he had 29. That's 11th in the NHL. Faceoffs, he won 501 faceoffs, 12th in the NHL. And then on a website called Hockey Viz, they have this tool where it shows quality of competition. And among the top centers in the NHL, he spent the 5th most time against elite competition among centers in the NHL this year. So he did all that, was second in scoring, led the Calgary Flames in points at 5-on-5. And so he did all that at 36 and 37 years old, and was the captain of a bad team, and had really no support around him really at all. And he was able to have that season. I don't know how much more you can ask from Mikael Backlund at this age, at this stage of his career than what he gave you this season. I thought he was really good. And I know there's a lot of people that don't like him for some reason, and I would just say, you got to look at it differently. Like, you got to change your perspective a little bit on Backlund, because he is a very effective player, and I think he's one of the most underrated defensive players that has been in the NHL in the last 10 years. I thought he was excellent this year.
You put out all those numbers, and then you take a step back and you think about it. He's doing that kind of stuff against Crosby's, McKinnon's, McDavid's, those players. It's not like he's doing it against, Shane Wright, or I don't know, whoever the third line center is in Dallas, those kind of player. Like, he's going out there against the elite of the elite at 36, 37 years old. He's doing it while usually mentoring a guy on one of his wings. Sam Honzik spent time this year. Connor Zary spent time this year, so on and so forth. He did it without Blake Coleman for a stretch because he was injured. And he's still just plodding away and doing what he does day in and day out. My expectation for coming into the season was be Mikael Backlund, albeit maybe he's doing it a little bit slower. He wasn't slower this year. He was still effective. And the 40-ish points is nothing to shake a stick at, but still almost half a point per game player. What more can you ask for him when he's getting all those tough matchups and spending literally 90% of the game in the defensive zone or on the PK? Like, incredible hockey player, incredible season for him. I don't get the hate that Mikael Backlund gets on social media, and if you don't like him, fine. That's your opinion. Go ahead, because I think he's been actually a very fine Flame. I think he's been good, and I think for where he was picked in the draft, he's turned out to be a very effective middle six centerman who's captaining a team and has an opportunity next year now to continue on this path and get really close, if not beat the most games played by a Flame soon. So, what more can you ask out of a career from a guy that you drafted there? What more can you ask from Mikael Backlund as a player? And on a rebuilding, struggling team, find a better leader, because I don't know if a raw guy gets this team any closer to the playoffs than what Mikael Backlund did by being a guy who leads by example. So for me, successful season for Mikael Backlund.
32 teams in the NHL would love to have a guy like Mikael Backlund on their team.
Do you know who could use that Mikael Backlund type player right now? Look up north. Look up north in the team that struggles in their own zone consistently. Look at what the Leafs did this season and what they could not do. They couldn't defend either. You have these teams that would love a Mikael Backlund-esque player, and we have people scoffing at him in our organization. It's something else.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, and I brought out this stat before, but I think it was prior to this season. He had gotten Selke votes in 8 of the last 10 years. Like how could anybody say
Crazy.
that this guy is not a good player or not an effective player? I think another issue here is that the Flames haven't done any winning with Mikael Backlund on the roster, but my counterpoint to that would be he's a middle six center. He's a defensive middle six center. Do you expect him to be the guy who's going to lead the charge in winning playoff rounds? Like those types of things are up to goaltending and your top players. Those are the drivers, the Lindholms and Kachucks and Monahans and Gaudreaus and Giordanos of the world, and your goaltending. Those are the guys who need to push you to win in the playoffs. And Mikael Backlund is there as a high-end support piece. He's kind of just on the outside looking in of that group of elite players, but he still plays a really important role. And, he is not the reason why this team has not had success since joining the organization in 2007. I think that's on coaching, management, bad goaltending, and lack of star power, and that star power performing in the playoffs. It's not on Mikael Backlund. I can't stand when people say stuff like that. Like, this organization can't win with Backlund because they've never done it when he's here. And it's not his fault. Like, he's doing everything he can in his role to help the team move forward. There's so many other elements of this organization that have let him down over the years and are the reason why they haven't had success in the regular season and playoffs. It's not all on him. Like, that's one thing that always bothers me.
Yes, it's Mikael Backlund's fault that Brian Elliott let in that ridiculous overtime shot. It's Mikael Backlund's fault. Mikael Backlund's fault that Jonas Hiller couldn't make a save. It's Mikael Backlund's fault that it took him, like, they went against Anaheim and got their butts handed. Like, let's give her a head of shake here. Like, you got to realize what Mikael Backlund is. He's not Patrice Bergeron. He's not Jonathan Toews. He's the next level down. And
there's nothing wrong with that.
And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. I just spent time talking about that and about how this is a good player. What has failed Mikael Backlund is the franchise building around him or building on top of him. They band-aided it with Elias Lindholm and Sean Monahan. All due respect to those guys. They didn't put number one centers around anybody in this organization since even with Jerome was around. The closest we've had to a number one center since Joe Noondike left, and all due respect to all these other players, the list is a Sean Monahan, who is a good 1B, and Nazem Kadri in his mid-30s. Like,
it's abysmal.
Like, those are not number one centers. So you're asking your top defensive center to also be a top six centerman, and at times your number one centerman on a flawed roster. And to blame him for losing means you've missed all the coaching, you've missed the defenseman the gaffes, you've missed the goaltending gaffes, you've missed the mismanagement of assets, not to mention any Brad Treliving trades like Hamonic. None of that stuff. You're skipping over a lot to try to blame Mikael Backlund for this organization not winning, and it really isn't fair. He's only a piece, and if you're in the dying seconds of a game in overtime where you need the goal to move on, Mikael Backlund's not the one on the ice. You need your offensive guys to step up and be that guy, and you need your goaltender to make some saves. And neither of those, in last I checked, were Mikael Backlund's job. Now he's part of the culture and he's part of the tone setters. So you do need him to put his job and do his job in those situations. And I think overall you could say that he has done his job. And so I don't blame Mikael Backlund at all. And I think it's foolish. I think it's foolish if you do.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
This next one is going to be extremely interesting because this is Robert's favorite player on the Flames. He loves when number 17 takes the puck and flies down the wing and button hooks and doesn't make a play. Robert, Yegor Sharangovich, the media seemed to like his game the longer the season went on. You and I really didn't. Where do we go with Yegor Sharangovich, and how do you grade this guy?
Oh, do we really have to talk about him?
You can make it short and sweet if you'd like.
Can we just move on? Yeah, I'm giving Sharangovich a D. I thought he was terrible this year. The thing that really just upsets me watching him play is that there is just no fire, there is no drive, there is no passion, there is no intensity. I would argue that he is one of, if not the easiest player in the NHL to play against. He will not put a hit on you. He will not forecheck hard. You can easily win a battle against him. I think he's very soft, and I thought he had a dismal year. Once again, another player that was super inconsistent. In the NHL, a lot of these players, they'll have a certain skill set that is high end and keeps them in the NHL. And I genuinely believe that Yegor Sharangovich has a high end shot, but he doesn't use it. He never uses his shot, which is another thing that drives me absolutely insane. It's like, dude, that's like all you're truly good at in the NHL. Rip pucks. Like every time you get a chance, shoot the damn puck. And he just didn't do it this year. So the fact that he was so easy to play against, the fact that he wasn't a driver offensively whatsoever, the fact he didn't use his shot, it was a very frustrating year to watch this guy play. So, I have him as a D. And, he was a -20. He's on the ice for a ton of goals against. He's not penalty killing anymore. He's not good defensively. Like, he doesn't bring anything to the table. And he's making $5.75 for another 4 years. So, yeah, this was a disastrous year for Yegor Sharangovich. I thought he was terrible. And, you brought up, it's, in the media, like a lot of people are saying, oh, he's really starting to turn his game around. And like, look how much better he's been since the beginning of the year. I could not disagree with that more. I thought he was absolutely junk this year for the entirety of the 25-26 season. So yeah, I did not like his game whatsoever. I've given him a D.
You see flashes every now and then. You see one good play, and I think that's what the media likes to strap other boots to. But it's just like, you don't get it all the time, and you don't get it consistently. And yeah, you get that Office Space meme of, what would you say you do here, Yegor? And that's where I leave off with him this year. Is I'm not sure what he does. Like you mentioned, he doesn't use his shot, and that shot's incredible when he does use it. He doesn't perform on the penalty kill anymore. He's very awful on the power play, and he does a lot of cardio on a lot of nights. And so it's hard to give him anything higher than what you did, Robert. I'll be nice, and I'll go C- because he does have a shot, and when he does use it, he can be effective. He did get, in the teens with his goals again this year, but this is a guy you're paying to get 20 or more goals. This is a guy that you're paying to be in your top 6. Let's be honest here. If you pulled the coaches, you'd think that Yegor Sharangovich was a top 6 winger on this roster. Like, that's what they were hoping for after he got to 30 goals. So where has that player gone? Where's the consistency in the game? Like a lot of players this year, that inconsistency word is going to keep coming up over and over and over and over again. And for me, that's where Yegor Sharangovich is. I don't think we need to spend any more time on Sharangovich here.
Yeah, just like the main frustrating thing is for me is just that he's so easy to play against, and that there's no pushback in his game, and that you can sometimes struggle offensively. Like sometimes you're snake bitten, and sometimes you're inconsistent. Like that's going to happen with NHL players, but at least bring something else to the table, and he brings nothing else to the table. Like, the only time he's ever effective is when he's scoring goals, and he only scored 15 of them this year. And he just brought nothing else to the table. That's the most frustrating part about his game. And, like you said, there is some talent there. We saw it in his first year in Calgary. Like he had, a solid 3 months in the second half of that season and put up a ton of goals and points, and he was looking pretty dynamic. But, we haven't seen that guy over the last 2 years. And like I said, when he's not scoring, he's not doing anything for this team. And, to be making $5.75 is frustrating for another 4 years. Because one thing you have to keep in mind here is that a lot of these young players on the Flames, they're going to be signing their second contracts out of entry level while Yegor is still on the roster. So it just feels like $5.75 million of wasted cap space, to go on top of Huberdeau's 10.5. There's over $16 million worth of dead cap space on this team because of those two players. And Brayden and Parekh and some of these other guys are going to be signing big time second contracts. And I hope Yegor Sharangovich and a Huberdeau don't get in the way of the Flames being able to sign these core players to long-term deals.
So Robert and John love Sharangovich.
Sharangovich.
Thanks for the year, Sharangovich. This next one is going to be an interesting one as well for me, because I'm not as high on this guy as a lot of other Flame fans are, and a lot of Flame fans give this guy a lot of positive feedback. Post-trade deadline, though, Adam Klapka in the 19 games only had 5 points, was a -8, and I really thought he shrunk when things took a turn at the trade deadline here. I'm not sure what grade to give Adam Klapka because I want to be nice, but at the same time, I wanted to see a lot more from the big man because at times this year, you saw him elevate in the lineup, and he was clearly the Flames' best forward. He played alongside Nazem Kadri for parts of the year, and he looked really good when he was elevated in games. But then he would start the next game in the top 6, and he looked awful. So he was such an up and down season. I'm going to give this guy a C+ because you saw some good. You saw what other fans would love about this guy. He does have some skill set, but again, that inconsistency word sticks in for me. Again, I'm not sure what to make of his overall season and what he brings to the table next year. And I think he's one of these guys that needs to look in that rearview mirror because there's other guys coming for that job. Adam Klapka, what say you, Robert, on the season we saw from the big man?
Yeah, I actually had the exact same grade as you.
Interesting.
And I thought he came into the season, or he finished the season kind of below my expectations because, I saw the way he finished last year, and I saw like the goal scoring and the hitting and the playmaking and the skill and the size, and there's this really tantalizing player here with a pretty impressive skill set. And I thought, you know what, if he can put it all together like this, there's no reason that Klapka can't play in the top 9, can't put up 12 goals and 30 points, something along the lines of that, and be a physical force on this team. And he was a physical force. I mean, he was 4th in the NHL in hits with 295. And I do think he was good on the forecheck, and I think he's a bit of an intimidating player from a physicality standpoint, not a fighting, but like an actual like hitting and forechecking standpoint. But the offense just wasn't there, and he was very inconsistent. So, he had 6 goals, 12 assists, 18 points this year. I think what he showed is that he kind of maxes out as a solid 4th line forward. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If Klapka can kind of give you what he gave you this year, playing in that 4th line role, and fans and the team have the expectation that he's not a top 9 forward, I think he can turn into a long-term NHL player by putting up around 20 points, hitting everything in sight, being a good forechecker, going to the net front and using his hands and his skills, every now and then. Like I think there's a chance for him to be an effective bottom of the lineup player. So yeah, I mean, maybe my expectations heading into the year were just a little too high because I saw what I saw at the end of last year. So that's why I kind of grade him at a C+. But I mean, I do think there's the potential for him to be, a pretty effective player. And starting next year, he'll be 26 years old. Like, he's not an old guy by any stretch. So I think he's still got a lot of good hockey in him.
Yeah, you just want to see it more consistently, right? Like you see the skill there. You see how he can dangle the puck and he can hit and he can be a force. You think this guy could be a really good power forward, but he just isn't the player you want him to be consistently and on a big level. And I like what you mentioned there, Robert. I think this is a guy who could be a really effective 4th liner. We've seen Ryan Huska not be afraid to elevate guys in games, and when you're playing very well, be elevated in games. But 4th liner, a guy who has a role, a guy who can produce a little bit for you as well. Like, this should be a no-brainer guy. This should be a guy who comes in and can easily meet your expectations every season because of what he brings to the table. We just need to see it now. We just need to see it more consistently. And yes, it was a tough year for the entire organization, but individually, if you look at his game, I don't know if there's any player who fluctuated more from game to game in their effort level, in what they were able to produce, and you just want to see that more. So I'm here, Adam, and I'm ready to be won over as you being a bona fide, really good top end 4th line player in this league who can be elevated in game. I'm ready to be won over. I just need to see it from him more.
Yeah, like you said, consistency is the issue. And, the other thing, I guess, just to keep in mind, if we want to give Klapka the benefit of the doubt, is that this was his first full year in the NHL.
Yep, 100%.
So there still is potential room for growth. He was a big-time project coming over to the Flames. Like in the Czech League in 21-22, he only had 18 points in 44 games. Like, this was not a guy that dominated at other levels of hockey. He's kind of slowly had to learn and develop and get better as the years have gone on. And who knows, maybe after a full year of playing in the NHL this year, maybe he learned a whole bunch of lessons that he can take into next year and become a top 9 player. But I just think heading into next year, we have to manage our expectations with him. I think our expectations, mine in particular, got a little out of control for him. And so if we go into next year saying, okay, let's just expect him to be a fourth line player, and if he's more than that, great. But if he's not, then I think you have an effective bottom of the lineup guy. That's kind of how I'm going about it heading into next year.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely fair. I'm with you on that one. This next guy is probably the only other guy on the roster we could talk about consistency with, and as in he was very consistent in his play. He's a guy that was traded for midseason, who was brought in. A lot of people thought, hey, he might just be a flippable asset. He might just be a guy that they bring in for a few weeks and they flip him again. But Zach Whitecloud really asserted himself, and he was not shy about saying he wanted to be in Calgary, wanted to be part of the solution, wanted to be here and to be a guy that could be counted on. And boy, did he play like it. It's hard not to give Mr. Whitecloud an A, even an A+ for the season he put together for the Flames. Leader on and off. Like at the end of the season there, he didn't have to play that last game after losing all those chiclets and being in the dentist chair for 9 hours, but he straps it on up and he goes out there and he plays well for the Flames. This is a player going forward for the Flames that I think can be their next Giordano on the back, not winning Norris's Giordano, but a good, solid leader that can help these younger defensemen develop, and you need that back there. Zach Whitecloud came in here, he asserted himself, he took a role, and he's now a go-to guy for the Flames, and so you can't help but love this guy, love what he brings to the table. So for me, Mr. Whitecloud gets an A to A+ here from me. What say you, Robert?
Okay, we got to start having some different opinions here. People are probably getting bored because I got him as an A as well. Similar letter grade. An F for Whitecloud. F. Do more. I don't have anything bad to say about Zach Whitecloud, both as a player in person. You know, like, sure, could you want a little more offense out of a guy who's playing in your top four? Okay, sure. But overall, like, we'll start on the ice. I think he's a really solid defensive player. I think you could put him out against opposition's top lines, first or second line, and he can handle himself well. He's really good in his own end. He plays well in the penalty kill. He's willing to sacrifice the body with physicality and blocking shots. I actually think he's a better puck mover than a lot of people give him credit for. I was impressed by his ability to make those first outlet passes. And then you look off the ice, and I think that's where you're even more impressed with him. Like, how many players in the NHL can go from one locker room to another and literally within days become a leader and put a letter on their jersey? And Whitecloud's not like an all-star or anything like that. It's not like the Flames are getting Sidney Crosby and you automatically just put a letter on his chest. Like, this is a kind of a second pair defenseman. Like, literally right away became an assistant captain on the team, which I thought was just incredibly impressive. And then, publicly, at least, like from my perspective, like, we don't know all the charity work these players do, but from my vantage point, it looked like Whitecloud in his 2 months or even less than 2 months with the Flames did more charity work than like anybody else on the team. Like, he's like in the community, he's embracing being a Flame. He's taken young players under his wing. Like, you can tell he's a great leader. Like, what more can you ask for from a guy who is essentially a cap dump and a throwaway in a bigger trade? Like, Whitecloud, when they first acquired him, I thought to myself, okay, well, they should absolutely flip him, add another draft pick to this, haul that they got for Rasmus Andersson. And, within a week, I completely changed my mind. I'm like, no, you got to keep this guy for at least the next couple years. And who knows, maybe you sign him, maybe you trade him. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for a rebuilding team, I think it's so important to have players like this in your lineup. And yeah, I have nothing but great things to say about him. I am so impressed by just the character, the leadership, the on ice play. Like, the fact that they somehow got Whitecloud and a first and a second and a prospect for Rasmus Andersson, who hasn't even re-signed in Vegas, is an incredibly impressive haul from Craig Conroy. Like, I don't think he could have done much better in that trade. So yeah, Whitecloud gets an A. I am thoroughly impressed by this guy. I just think he's awesome.
One of the best parts of that trade was, you've heard this reported by a few people, is Whitecloud was always in that deal. He was targeted by Craig Conroy in that deal. Like, he was you had to have made him part of that deal to get Rasmus Andersson. Like when you have a general manager who's that convinced of a guy, and then the guy that comes in here and convinces all of the Flame fans what Craig Conroy was seeing in just a short amount of time, it's a special player. He might not be a Norris level going to, blow you away with all the points, but man, what he brings to you, the community, to the team, incredible hockey player.
Just look at the reception he got in Vegas when they went back there. Whitecloud play, yes, he was part of a Stanley Cup winning team. Like there's always going to be a special place in people's hearts for every player on that roster. But during Whitecloud's time in Vegas, he was a second and third pairing defenseman. A lot of nights he was on their third pair.
Mm-hmm.
And look at the ovation he got. He got a standing ovation. Like restaurants and bars were putting up signs saying "Welcome back, Zach." And you hear that teammates absolutely love the guy. And I'm almost wondering, the Vegas Golden Knights, they struggled after acquiring Rasmus Andersson. And I wonder if losing a guy as integral to their culture and their locker room as Whitecloud, I wonder if losing him actually kind of hurt Vegas. I mean, we'll ultimately end up seeing what happens in the playoffs here. They're down 2-1 as of this recording, but I wonder if Vegas misses him a little bit, because I mean that's tough. You're taking away a beloved teammate, a best friend out of a group, to bring in a guy who's not even signed into next year. And Rasmus Andersson has a big personality. Like I wonder how that's gone over in the Vegas locker room. So yeah, I just still can't believe they got Whitecloud and the picks and prospects for Andersson. Very, very impressive by Conroy.
Maybe a little bit of a lesson for Vegas in loyalty, and maybe having a little bit of loyalty actually does benefit you, but I digress. The next guy on our list is a guy who was kind of a part-time player this year, Robert. I'm going to be honest. I'm a little disappointed he didn't do a little bit more to solidify himself, because there was opportunities there, especially after Yegor was moved and especially after Andersson was moved. And I know we were trying to get the kids to play, but Brayden Pachal really had an opportunity here to take a job and solidify himself a little bit more in this Flames lineup. And he ended up being like more of an eighth defenseman for this team when it was all said and done. Given the injury to Hanley, he was able to play a little bit more as well. I want to give Brayden Pachal a C+, because when he was in the lineup, he was fine, but I thought he could do a little bit more to be more consistently in the lineup. Maybe a little bit harsh by me, but for a waiver claim that the Flames brought in, he did a lot last year to earn that contract. I don't think he did a lot this year to justify that contract. And again, might be a little bit harsher some, but just I thought a little bit more from Brayden Pachal could have helped him be a more consistently in the lineup type of player. And when he was in the lineup, he was just there a lot of nights. He didn't really bring anything extra to the table here. I wonder how many people are yelling at their phones right now, or their tablets of you're being a little bit harsh here on Brayden Pachal, and I might be. What say you, Robert, on Brayden Pachal?
We finally have a different letter grade. Finally have a different perspective on a player. I'll go a B for Brayden Pachal. Heading into the season, you had Andersson, Yegor, Parekh all on the right side, all ahead of Pachal. So I think it was really hard for him to establish himself in the lineup. And he's a number 6, 7, 8 defenseman in the NHL, and through his 39 games played this year, I actually thought he lived up to expectations. I thought he was pretty solid. Like, I think it's really difficult for guys to be a healthy scratch so often and then get called upon out of nowhere, almost like Michael Stone did back in the day. So I think it's hard for a guy like Pachal to establish like a high level of play when that's happening. So with that in mind, I actually thought he was pretty solid. I thought he was pretty consistent, and I really like the physical element he brought to the Flames back end, because that's not a physical group in terms of like laying the body. Pachal is kind of one of those guys where you have to keep your head up when you're on the ice, and the Flames don't really have any other players like that. Kevin Ball is kind of like that. Kuznetsov is big, but he doesn't necessarily use his physicality. Like Pachal is like a guy who will line you up and run you over, kind of Jacob Trouba style. So it was nice to kind of add that element to the back end. And the other thing too is that I like that he never complains about being a healthy scratch. It's, by all accounts, like I heard some interviews over the course of the year. I think one of them was from Ryan Huska, and said that Brayden Pachal is a beloved teammate in that locker room. Like, guys love the guy. And I think that's important when you're kind of one of those extra players, because if you're going in the room sulking and like, oh, I'm not playing again, oh man, like, players are going to hate that. So the fact that he had a really good positive attitude and never complained and worked his ass off and played hard when he got in the lineup, I respect that. So yeah, I'll give him a B. I thought he lived up to being that kind of extra defenseman, if that makes sense. And the Flames are gonna have to make a decision this summer. Like, they're gonna have to move on from either Pachal or Hanley, I think, at the very least. And I would actually pick Pachal over Hanley. I think it's important having, like I said, that physicality, also having a right shot if they want to move, Perek to the left or something like that. Like, it looks like Whitecloud could maybe play on his offside every now and then. So moving a lefty, I think, makes more sense than a righty. So yeah, overall, I was happy with Pachal's play. Actually, I thought he was pretty solid.
Fair enough. I just want a little bit more from him. It was my take on things, but hey, I like what you
Totally
said.
Fair.
So, good guy though. Like, it's like what you mentioned there. Like, when teammates love you and you're a good guy, and you're not sulking. That is a lot for an organization as well. And I know people hate the word, but that's kind of what you want with culture in that dressing room. You want guys that want to be there and be good teammates and not sulk. So that's good for the room as well. You wanted different letter grades, and I have no way of seeing us not giving this guy the same grade. This next guy, last guy on our list, he went from a guy who people doubted his job to they were shopping the waiver wire to replace him to being the guy who was stealing starts essentially at the end of the season. And now there's, according to some, a goaltending controversy in Calgary. Devin Cooley really asserted himself this year. He took the opportunity given to him. He ran with it. He gave his wicked interviews in the media. He was all around a good guy. How can you not give Devin Cooley the highest grade you can, given what he did for this organization, solidifying the backup role, maybe even starter 1B? The way he approached the game, the fun that he had around the rink, the teammate that he is, the fun he is in the media, what he is around town. He's just a humble guy who enjoys showing up, and he loves to compete. Devin Cooley really answered a lot of questions from Flame fans this year, in my opinion. This guy gets an A+ for me. You look at his stats across the goaltenders who qualified for the stats, and he's in the top 5, top 10 of a lot of categories. How can you not be impressed with number 1 of the Calgary Flames, Robert?
Yeah, I mean, you can't give him any other grade other than an A+. Like, he was awesome. And
well, you could, but you'd be wrong.
Well, exactly. And like, we talked about how like our grades are kind of based off expectation. And you and I, like, we were both big Cooley fans. This even dates back to when they signed him.
Yep.
We both thought that he should have been backing up last season, let alone this season. So both of us have been very high on him, and he definitely proved us right. I mean, he was incredible. Like, he was the best on ice story for the Calgary Flames this year, and I don't even really think it's close. And you talk about some of the stats there. Well, so this is among 68 goalies to play 1,000 minutes this year. His high danger save percentage, 3rd in the NHL. Goals save above expected per 60. So this kind of, this kind of helps level the playing field for Cooley against guys who are played double the amount of games that he did. He was 7th in that stat among those 68 goalies. Save percentage, 9th. Goals save above expected just in general, 13th. Goals against average, 21st. Like, he's in the top 3rd in the NHL in all these stats, which is incredibly impressive. And then on top of that, the defensive environment in front of him was not strong by the Flames this year. Cooley, he faced the 4th most high danger shots against per 60 in the NHL. Like, the Flames are giving up a ton of high danger shots, and then he also had to make the 7th most saves per 60 in the NHL. So he faced a ton of rubber. He faced a ton of high danger opportunities, and with that high danger save percentage, 858, 3rd in the NHL. Says a lot about his season, in my opinion. So, and then on top of that, like you mentioned, that he's just got an amazing personality. He's got those great interviews. He's easily a fan favorite now. Like, if you were to poll, 1,000 Flames fans and say, like, who's your favorite player right now? I bet you there's like a lot of people that would say Devin Cooley because of how he plays on the ice. Like, he's actually a really fun goalie to watch. And then also the personality off it, which I actually think is really important in today's world. I mean, the NHL, it's entertainment. It's not, in my opinion, it's not the winning hockey games business. I think it's the entertainment business. and Cooley provides a ton of entertainment and positive energy and humor, like stuff that the NHL needs a lot more of in the future here. So yeah, grand slam home run of a signing, A+, no doubt about it. And they also signed him to a great contract, and now either you can keep him for the next couple of years, you could trade him at some point and probably get a really substantial return, or a couple of years from now we'll see what ends up happening with the goaltending. Like there's not a goaltending controversy right now for me, but Cooley continues to play like this, this year, next year, and the following year, all of a sudden there's maybe a little bit of a conversation to be had. So yeah, nothing but great things to say about him. I thought he was excellent.
The way this guy battles every night too, in every game too, like how could you not think that he's an upgrade on a lot of other teams, including maybe a couple of playoff teams, hint up north, that could have used a goaltender that battles like he does, that he shows up how he does, that he just. There were a lot of nights when he got starts that people are like, oh, great, Devin Cooley's coming in. Like Barnburner calls him the Saboteur because he was winning games for this team. He's stealing points for the team. When you're trying to tank or trying to get a higher draft pick and a goaltender comes in, you're stealing games, it's kind of like, well, you're kind of counterintuitive. At the same time, you admire that about him. He shows up. He never cheated you on effort. And the few games that he had a bad night on, he came back with the same positive attitude and just went back to work. And you love that about that guy. So Devin Cooley, good guy, great goaltender, and really surpassed everyone's expectations, considering that pretty much everyone in the hockey world was looking for a new backup goaltender for the Flames when this season began. So that's quite the turnaround for Devin Cooley and the Flames.
Yeah, and I'd mentioned that he could become a very valuable trade chip for this team. And
yep,
you look around the league, there are a bunch of teams that need help with their goaltending. Like I look at Florida. Sergei Bobrovsky's a pending UFA. They're going to need to shore up that situation. And then you got the Kings who, between Forsberg and Kemper, I don't know if you're thrilled with that goaltending. Toronto's a bit of a mess in net. Like you said, the Oilers, the Golden Knights, both those teams desperately need help. Seattle, you can maybe even look at a place like Carolina, New Jersey. Jacob Markstrom has not been very good there. Like there's a lot of teams that could use an upgrade in net, and Cooley could potentially be a guy that could be on teams' radars over the next year or two.
Incredible season from him. We'll have more player grades next week on the podcast, but to wrap up this one, Robert, kind of a cool conversation that I heard. Excuse me, on a couple other shows over the last week here about the Flames draft and their draft position. The Flames come into the 2026 draft with 11 picks. They're already sitting at 49 contracts, and you look at their depth chart on their prospects page, you have over 20 guys coming that could potentially need contracts. A numbers game is starting to happen here, Robert, where the Flames cupboards are now getting, this is weird to say, are now getting too full. Can you possibly go into the 26 draft and use all 11 picks to pick players? Or would this be the time to benefit the Flames where they go out and they target, say, an NHL ready centerman or defenseman or wherever you might think of? Is this the time to start pulling the trigger on bringing in younger players using your assets? Because you've collected a heck of a lot starting with the 11 this draft.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think the way I view it personally is that the Flames, they're in a position now where they built up, a pretty solid prospect base. I mean, Scott Wheeler had them ranked third in the NHL. So I think they're at a point now where it's quality over quantity. So I take a look, they got 8 picks in the first 3 rounds of this draft. I think, I don't know if I'd say it'd be disappointing, but I would like to see the Flames use some of those picks to move up in this year's draft, or even collect another pick in the first round of next year's draft where there's a ton of centers available. Mm-hmm. The one thing I don't want to see is them using these draft picks to acquire NHL players. I don't think they're at the stage of their rebuild where they should be doing that right now. I think they should be using these picks, and if they are gonna use them as assets, I want them to move up in the draft. And like an example could be, they use their first round pick, their own, in the top 6, and they get a Malhotra or a Carls or somebody like that, which would be a home run. and then you use Vegas's pick on a guy like Liam Ruck, and then maybe you could package 2 of your second round picks to move up late in the first round to secure Marcus and take a swing on the Ruck brothers, something like that, or even using 2 or 3 of your seconds to, along with Vegas's pick, to maybe move into the top 10 again and get 2 top 10 picks in the draft. Like, that's the kind of thing I'd love to see Craig Conroy try to do, and I'd love to see him get creative and do something like that. But like I said, I'm personally not in the camp where I want them acquiring reclamation projects or young players with these draft picks. I think that's the type of move you make 2 or 3 years from now, not right now at the very beginning stages of your rebuild. So that's kind of how I view it. Like where are you at on that, on acquiring NHL players with some of these picks? Do you like that idea?
It depends for who. Like, really, and I don't want to sound like I'm copping out here, but if you're going to target a 21 or a 22-year-old center, let's just throw a hypothetical out there. Kent Johnson or a Shane Wright, those style of players. Say that costs you a couple of second rounders and a fourth or something, say whatever the price might be. Does that benefit your roster now and later down the road? I think because of their age and their development cycle, they fit in exactly what the Flames are looking for. But at the same time, you have to be sure that the player you're bringing in can get to the next level with your organization. Does he fit in with what you're trying to do? Because that's a dangerous game to play, and we've seen teams try that before, and it works, and we've seen it fail before as well. So really have to be careful when you're trying to get NHL players. What I really like is what you mentioned there about the Ruck brothers, and I'm not just saying of the Ruck brothers. This draft for me and how I go about approaching drafts is I do my research. I watch my film. I'm not as dialed in as guys at Elite Prospects are. Those guys are incredible. But I do my research. And for me, from that about 7, 8, 9 spot to around the 20th spot, there's a chunk of players there that could be potential difference makers. And so if I'm the Flames, and regardless of where that Vegas pick ends up, I'm going to try to get myself back into that top 15, top 16 area and find another way to get another prospect in my ranks that I'm high on. You have your target at the top. You know you're going to get one of the top 6 guys in this draft. You know you're going to walk away very happy with whoever that might be, hopefully McKenna, that you can jump back up into that top 15 and find another guy that you're really excited about. And there's a whole host of guys that you could pick from in that area. And you should be able to be satisfied with that. I think this is the time for the Flames to be aggressive in draft, not with players, but in draft. Use these draft picks. You got 11 of them. If you come out of this draft with 11 players, it's going to be a little disappointing for you, to be honest. You need to be aggressive in draft. Start getting the quality. We have the quantity. We have our guys coming, the Bashas and all those other guys coming. Let's get those higher end guys that we're more excited about. Like, how excited are we about Parekh and what he's bringing to the table? How much more excited are we going to be about this top 6 pick that's coming? Think back to the Gaudreau, Monahan, Bennett days, those days. How excited are we that, we have Monahan, we just got Kachuk, Bennett's coming. That excitement that was building around the fan base, that's where we need to be now, I think, for the Flames. We have enough prospects and projects coming. Let's start focusing on getting the quality. So that's where I am at with this draft pick. So I'm not as high on getting NHL like you, getting NHL players. It's got to be a very specific situation that I would do that in. I'm more about let's get 2 top 15 picks, 2 top 16 picks, and really focus on getting the quality in this prospect pool.
Yeah, 100%. And Another thing, I mean, this is just more of a draft conversation than like an asset management conversation, but I do hope the Flames take a few defensemen in this year's draft. I think the defense cupboards are a little bare, particularly on the left side. I don't know if Etienne Morin's going to be an NHL player. I get the impression that he's not going to be that guy, but like you have Parekh on the right, and I think he long-term is probably best suited to play second pair minutes at 5-on-5 and run your first power play unit. I still think you'd want like a more well-rounded player ahead of him. On the left side, like you have some nice pieces in terms of, Kevin Ball and Yan Kuznetsov, but I think you want like an elite player. I think you're missing that elite number 1 defenseman in this organization. I don't know if Parekh is quite that guy, which is totally fine. He's going to have a role and it's going to be important. but I think they need to add a little more depth to the organization on the back end. Because like I'm not totally sold on Etienne Morin. I'm not totally sold on a guy like Maceo Phillips. We'll see what Henry Muse is. Brstevich, is he better suited to be playing on a third pair and run a second power play unit, or can he play top 4 minutes? Like I think there's more questions than answers right now on the Flames back end, and it's a good starting point. I think they have some good players there, but I do think they're missing like the elite high end guy where like a potentially like a Carson Carls can come in and be that type of player for you. So yeah, I really hope that they do kind of focus on defense, drafting 2 or 3 of them in this year's draft.
And there's a lot of defensemen in this draft as well. This is a winger/defenseman draft. There's a ton of guys playing in Europe. If the Smits falls down to 10 or 11, do you jump on that train and try to trade up and get that type of a guy? Like there's guys around that you can draft to satisfy what Robert's talking about there. And you're hedging your bets. Like, what if Etienne Morin pans out and this guy pans out? Well, now you've got a good problem on your hands. Who do you move forward with? What can you use the other asset to get to help your roster? And so that's where I'm at with the Flames here, is make it difficult on yourself to the point where you've got enough players that are internal competition and that someone's going to be an odd man out that's a good player that you can use somewhere else to help solidify your roster. That works over and over. We've seen it across the league happen. The Anaheim Ducks pulled off a couple of those trades. Jamie Drysdale out, and in comes Cutter Gauthier, like a position of access for position of need, and it's worked for them. They're in the playoffs. They're beating the Oilers. It's nice to watch. Like that's where I'm at with the Flames here. Be aggressive with your draft picks. Be aggressive in your draft. Target your guys, and like Robert's mentioning there, fill out the quality of this roster and bring in guys that can challenge other players already in house. Like the left side of the Flames defense is definitely a weakness. You bring in another left side defenseman, all of a sudden there's a fire lit under Tim Morin. Can he accelerate his progression? Oh, Kuznetsov continues to play well because he knows there's another guy coming. I need to keep my place in the lineup. And it just a domino effect for me. Internal competition. You don't get that as much with the quantity. You get that with the quality of players. And so that's where I'm at with the Flames draft. 11 picks, Robert. That's insane to have.
That is insane. The other thing like I'll throw out there is that one of the reasons why I don't want them to use picks on NHL players right now is because a lot of times when you're acquiring these younger players, they're guys that have failed in their own organizations and they have a flaw. And I would rather see them use those picks in the draft. Like one team that really focused on acquiring younger NHL players using draft picks was the Vancouver Canucks over the last, I'll call it 10 years. And it's completely blown up in their face. Like, I'll just list off. I made a post for Canucks Army. Like I'll list some of the players that they've acquired for draft picks over the years. They got Lucas Reichel, Vitaly Kravtsov, Jack Studnicka, Ethan Bear, Travis Dermott, Matthew Highmore, Philip Larson, Lyndon Vey, Marcus Granlund, Andre Padan, Emerson Edom, Adam Clendenning, Sven Barchi. Like those are the types of players I think you acquire from teams that are looking to get rid of younger players. I think those are the types of guys that you bring in more often than not. Like, I think it's pretty rare to acquire a young player who comes in and just immediately turns the page. Like I would say, for every 10 players that you acquire, every 10 young players you acquire with the draft pick, like the guys I listed off, maybe 1 or 2 of them really hit. And I think it's almost a bit of a waste of draft capital. And if you want to make those moves in the future, like you're gonna continue to load up on draft picks here. Like, Ryan Strome's a UFA next year. Blake Coleman's a UFA. Morgan Frost is a UFA. We'll see what they end up doing with him. Adam Klapka's an RFA at the end of next season. And then you have guys like Joel Hanley, Brayden Pachal, and then beyond that, it's Oli Mata, Zach Whitecloud, Devin Cooley. Like there's a lot of players that this team is going to be able to cash in on and add draft picks to their arsenal. And in a couple years, when they're 2 years closer to getting out of the rebuild, that's when I think you start to acquire the 21, 22, 23-year-olds. Not now, because if you acquire them now, like, you look at like Frost and Farabee, they said, we want to acquire guys in that age range of like 23 to 25. Well, by the time the Flames are out of their rebuild and hopefully are in like playoff contention mode, guys like Frost and Farabee are going to be in their early 30s. So like, sure, you acquired them when they were 25 or 26, but by the time you're actually good, all of a sudden they're kind of older players. So like, I would rather see them acquire like the 22, 23, 24-year-old in a couple years. And then that way, when you're about to become a contender again, they're in their early 20s and in their prime, not getting out of their prime and becoming UFAs. So that's kind of like another way to think about it.
And please stay away from the offer sheet conversation.
Oh, what is going on with that? Why do people keep bringing that up?
Like, you think about the offer sheets that you're going to have to offer around this league, and I'll use Sharangovich in Florida as an example. If you sign that guy to a contract that's worth anything, you're getting rid of your first-round pick this year or next year. Why would you do that? Pick your high-end players in the draft, develop your own guys, and then, like Robert mentioned there, when you are coming out of your window, then go shopping, then go look around, then go offer sheeting, then go making your trades. But right now, if you're the Flames, focus on the draft and being aggressive at the draft. For heavens to Betsy, there is no one out there right now that I would sign to an offer sheet. I'm sorry, there just isn't.
The only way I could see a team using an offer sheet is if they see a low end player who's getting no ice time and doesn't have any perceived value on the market, and you want to sign that player to an offer sheet 2 years at $2.5 million and you only give up a third round pick, then sure. Like if your scout loves somebody and you're willing to give up that third round pick for him, then sure. But anything using a first or second round pick, I think is absolutely ludicrous, especially the first round pick. Like what if you put in an offer sheet on a guy like Connor Bedard? You're going to have to offer him $17-18 million even for him to consider coming to Calgary. That's 4 first-round picks. You're going to give up 4 first-round picks
your own picks too
at the very beginning of your rebuild? Like, what are we talking about here?
And they're going to be your own picks at the top of every round. Like, why would you do that to yourself?
It's ludicrous. That whole conversation has to stop immediately because it makes absolutely no sense.
Like I mentioned, the only time that I would use an offer sheet is, okay, this is our window. We've targeted this year to come out of the rebuild. So the next 5, 7, 8 years, we want to be competitive. So let's go sign Broberg to a contract. Let's go sign, somebody else like that's when you pull the trigger on offer sheets, in my opinion. When you're starting a rebuild or in the middle of a rebuild, what good does that do other than, hey, we spent too much money on a player and now we lose draft picks for him? Excellent management. That doesn't make any sense to me. So media in Calgary, please do not entertain the offer sheet conversation. It shouldn't be a thing in Calgary.
No, not for a second, especially if it includes a first round pick. Like, you're telling me that you're willing to sacrifice your first round pick in the Landon Dupont, Alexei Joseph draft? Like, what are we talking about here?
Oh, the goal is not to get Alexei Joseph next year. I don't know what we're doing, because he's exactly what the Flames need.
100%. And like, on locker room cleanout day, there's so many questions to the players about, what's it going to take to get this team into the playoffs next year? It's like, why are we talking about that? The playoffs is not the goal next year. No fan who like follows this team religiously and is a diehard is like, this team has to make the playoffs next year. Like, everybody wants another high pick next year. So this whole conversation about playoffs and improving the roster and using picks to acquire players to help the team next year, I don't think it makes any sense. I think it makes 0 sense whatsoever. Those are the types of moves, like I said, you make 2 or 3 years from now when you're starting to get out of your rebuild. You're just in the beginning stages of it. Like, you're in asset accumulation mode. Acquire as many draft picks as possible. Like what are we doing here talking about, using offer sheets and using draft picks to acquire like players to help you win now? I just think it's nuts.
That drives me crazy. I might be the leader of Team Tank next year, Robert. I'm just going to warn you right now, because you look at Landon Dupont and Alexei Joseph coming out of that draft. It's like looking, and I know this is an extreme example, it's like looking at McKinnon and Makar at the top of the next year's draft. I am going to be leading the tank next year because those 2 players are difference makers, and I would love to get my hands on either one of them.
And they're still missing the difference makers. That's the thing. And you're not going to find those guys using an offer sheet. You're not going to find those guys in trades at that age. Like, you need to find them in the draft.
Fans want their own Crosby, their own McKinnon, their own Celebrini. Alexei Joseph is the next best thing to all of those things. Like, I know it's early, and I know I'm fawning over a 16-year-old kid right now, but this is what he projects to be, and this is the hope that we saw with McKenna, with Celebrini, with all these other guys that have come out here. You want your number one center, you got to draft those guys. There's an opportunity for the Flames here for 2-3 seasons to really capitalize, get themselves 2 or 3 really good difference makers, plus a couple of mid-round first rounders to help round out this roster and put themselves in a good spot. You offer sheet, that ruins it. You be aggressive on getting an NHL player, that ruins it, in my opinion. So please stay the course. I will lead Team Tank next year. I'll make the t-shirts and everything. I would do almost anything to get Alexei Joseph on the Flames next year.
I love it. Love hearing that.
That's my rant for the day. I know the offer sheet part wasn't on the rundown today, Robert, but I thought I'd fit that in there with the draft conversation. Anything else we've missed on the podcast today, Robert? If not, are you doing anything for flamesnation.ca? Are we excited about the draft lottery over there for you guys? And how can the folks find you and your work?
Yeah, it's got we're doing a lot of report card articles. I'm back writing again. I haven't written an article in a while, but I'm starting to write again, which is fun. So I got a Joel Farabee report card coming out, so that'll be good.
Nice.
And then at Flames Nation, we're going to be doing a live show. I think it'll be some of the Afterburner people like Mike and Pike will be hosting a draft lottery show, and then we also have a draft lottery party at Greta with like Pinder and Boomer and all those guys. So lots of draft lottery and draft content coming out for sure.
It's going to be awesome. That's Robert Munich at Ring of Fire CGY. I'm Vintage Johnny 84 across social media. And of course, the show is Red Mile Rundown wherever you get your podcasts or social mediaing done. Thank you so much for joining us this week on the podcast. We'll be back next week with part 2 of the report cards. Some interesting names coming up on the docket next week. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for making us part of your podcast rotation. Continue to enjoy the playoffs. Continue to enjoy the downfall of the Oilers, and we'll see you guys here next week on the pod.